We also want to share our disclaimer. This session is intended to be informational and educational and does not constitute legal, medical, or financial advice. Consult your legal, healthcare, or financial advisor for advice regarding your personal situation. AARP is not responsible for the consequences of any decisions or actions taken in reliance upon or as a result of the information provided during this event. So hopefully that doesn't really apply to Mahjong, but hey, we're going to have some fun today. Today we welcome Ronni Rice, also known as Marvelous Mrs. Mahj. Ronnie fell asleep countless nights to the sound of tapping Mahjong tiles. Her mom, grandmother, and aunt and all their friends played regularly. Though her mom offered to teach her how to play, she didn't think it was cool for a kid to play Mahjong. It wasn't until her own kids were in elementary school that she was reintroduced to the game and her love affair began. Ronnie started teaching in 2018, and the marvelous Mrs. Mahj was born to continue Ronnie's goal to teach and spread her love of Mahjong. It is a powerful tool for our brain and soul, enriching our lives mentally, socially, and emotionally. Please join me in welcoming Ronnie.
Vince, thank you for that introduction. Yes, my name is Ronni Rice, also known as Marvelous Mrs. Mahj. And honestly, there's almost nothing I love more than sharing my passion for this incredible game of American Mahjong. So, the first thing I want people to know, which you might not know, is there's actually over 40 recognized versions played around the world today. So, you can't really, I know you all had a session on Asian Mahjong a couple months ago, which really focused on Hong Kong and Taiwanese style of Mahjong. But even within China itself, there's about 23 different variants of the game. Korea, Japan has their own version called Rishi Mahjong. So it's very widespread, and there are different variants to the game which have been produced over the decades and centuries. And interestingly enough, most people don't know that even here in the United States, we actually have two versions of the game. We have what we refer to as American Mahjong, which is what I teach according to the rules of the National Mahjong League, which we'll talk about in a minute. But we also have a second version, and most people don't know this, but it's called Wright-Patterson Mahjong. And for those of you who don't know, Wright-Patterson is actually our largest Air Force base in Ohio. And what used to happen back, decades ago in the 30s and 40s, our servicemen and women, but mostly our servicemen, would come back from various points around the world, like Korea or Japan, Philippines, and they would say, "That's not how you play Mahj. I learned how to play this way." No, this is how you play Mahj. So the Captain's Wives Club from Wright-Patterson decided to form their own version of the game. Which is kind of a mashup of mostly Korean and our American Mahjong version of the game. And so that's called Wright-Patterson, which is not widely known, but I just wanted to point that out for people to not think that there's just one American version of the game. So a little bit about history, but I don't want to bore you all too much. But American Mahjong was brought over to the United States in 1920 from an American businessman named Joseph Babcock. And Mr. Babcock was working with the Shanghai Oil and Gas Company, and he saw all the men in China playing Mahjong, and he thought, "Oh, how cool. Like, I want the men of the United States to play Mahj." So he started importing Mahjong sets from China. He had them put the Arabic numerals on the tiles so that we could read them. And he's made up his own version of the game. He actually wrote the first rule book to the game, Babcock's Rules to Mahjong. But you know what the men here said? They also said no, thank you. They had poker, they had craps, they had absolutely no interest in playing with the tiles. But Mr. Babcock's wife and friends and the ladies, they all started playing with the tiles. And they threw out Mr. Babcock's rule book. Good, smart ladies, and they made up the version by which we played today. Now, American Mahjong is actually a complex game recognized by geriatric neurologists as being one of the top complex games that has real benefits to the brain, such as cognitive skills, hand-eye coordination, pattern recognition, short-term memory, help, so much not to, and also just the social skills and the human connection. And I have to say, that's what I love most about the game, not just playing the game, but those evenings with my friends, making new friends, meeting people around the Mahjong table. It's just a wonderful, wonderful game that has so many benefits to us. I mean, like doing your crossword and your Wordle puzzles are fantastic, and I do them every night. I love them too. But again, American Mahjong being a much more complex game where there's strategy and skill and defensive strategy, it just, the benefits to our brains is, undeniable. I got into a little argument with my 28-year-old daughter not too long ago. And of course I was right. And I said to her, don't argue with your mom. My body may be aging, but my brain is still 17 years old. I'm younger than you. So it's a great game. Now, what makes American Mahjong unique? Well, when it started back here in the 1920s, and the ladies started making up their own version of the game, it was very interesting. And believe it or not, fights were happening even here in the United States between the ladies over what rules were the right rules and who had the right to make the rules. So we all hear about the women in the Catskills that were playing the game and they were making up the rules. And they used to summer in the Catskills and then winter in Florida. And they'd take the tiles down with them to Florida. And then all the ladies in Florida started playing. And then they would fight a little bit about the rules and which rules were right. So the ladies of New York and up in the Catskills, they decided that they were going to be the absolute arbiters of the rules of our American version of the game. And they formed the National Mahjong League in 1937. And they wrote the rule book by which we play today. We have a card, a complex card, which I'll show you in a minute. The first card was printed in 1939, and the card changes every year, which tells us what hands we need to make in order to win a game for that particular year. That's part of what also makes American Mahjong such a complex and such an interesting game because the actual hands you need to build to win changes year to year. Now, back in the day, I want you to know, my mother also used to tear her hair out because they would also change like the number of tiles you would play with and, you know, crazy different patterns. So, for example, jokers were not introduced into our game until 1961. And every year they would change. This year we're going to play with 12 flowers. Now, this year we're going to play with 18 flowers. So I mean, it was crazy. And a lot of the old vintage sets you'll find will have like 24 flowers to them and no jokers because they were, made before we introduced jokers. So, for example, putting red nail polish on tiles because they would turn those flowers into jokers was very common. And I have to say, having my mother's Mahjong set of tiles is like one of my absolute prized possessions. So, in American Mahjong, what I teach and what we all now play is what we refer to as modern Mahjong. Now, modern Mahjong was born in 1994, which really is not all that long ago. So, the National Mahjong League was run for 50 years by a woman named Ruth Unger. Her two sons, Larry and David, have taken it over from their mom and they run it today. And again, they're the ones who are kind of the arbiters of the rules by which we play today. Now, there's a lot of also, just to mention before we get into the tiles and what we play with, um, is that the National Mahjong League, first of all, they also have a lovely charitable connection to them. Like it's a nonprofit organization that has a charity arm, and they donate a lot of money to charities every year, which is wonderful. So we'll talk about that again in a few minutes. But modern Mahjong was born in 1994 when, after all these players were tearing their hair out because they didn't know, they decided to standardize the game in 1994, which meant they no longer changed the tiles by which we play with, and they standardized the form of the card by which we play with, which I will show you in a few minutes. So American Mahjong is unique in that we are the only version of the game that plays with 152 tiles. Most Asian versions of the game play with 144, some play with 146. But if you are interested in playing American Mahjong, please make sure that when you purchase a Mahjong set, you buy a set that has at least 152 tiles, and it would say for American Mahjong on it. We are the only version of the game that plays with 8 flowers and 8 jokers. In Mahjong, like other versions of that's like playing cards when we use our tiles, both the number on the tile and the suit is important. In in all Mahjong, we have only 3 suits: bams, cracks, and dots. 3 suits. Bam is short for the word bamboo, and those tiles should have some type of green bamboo on them. We have a green dragon that goes with the suit of bamboos. Tiles are numbered 1 through 9. So if you're playing poker, for example, and you need to know if you have the ace of clubs or the 10 of hearts or the 2 of spades. Same thing is true in Mahjong. You need to know if you have the 3 of bams or the 2 of cracks or the 5 of dots. It's the same type of thing. I have here a sample of a tile. This is a 7 crack. Our second suit is called cracks, which is short for the word character. Like the suit of BAMs, and those kooky ladies back in the 1920s thought it was too much of a mouthful to have to say bamboo all the time. With this tile, which has an actual Chinese character or a wan on it, they thought it was too much of a mouthful to have to say character all the time, so we changed the word to cracks. So again, the tiles are numbered 1 through 9, and we have a red dragon that goes with our suit of cracks. Our third suit is called dots. The tiles are numbered 1 through 9 again. They just have some type of dots on it. And we have a white dragon that goes with the suit of dots. Now, back in the 1920s, those kooky ladies decided that the white dragon for our game of American Mahjong should be the only tile that has 2 purposes. As a dragon, it goes with the suit of dots, but they decided to use it as a 0. And you'll see what I mean in a moment about using a 0. Again, the National Mahjong League tells us what hands we need to make in order to win at Mahj for that particular year. So then we have our wind tiles, which are very specific: north, east, west, and south. Now we play with 4 of every tile. And that is important to remember when you are playing because we have to keep track. That's part of the, benefits to our brain because we have to keep track of what's being played, what our opponents have, who's, playing what. This is also a good time for me to mention that Mahjong is not a team sport. You are in it to win it for yourself. Traditionally, it is a 4-player game. Yes, you can do a 3-player game. 2 players called Siamese Mahjong, which is different but really fun. Um, just a side note, it's actually my favorite date night with my husband is to sit home and play Siamese Mahjong. We absolutely love to play that. And that's 2-player Mahj, which has different rules but is really fun. Um, but so you have to keep track. So we play with 4 of every tile of our numbered suits and wins, and then 8 flowers and 8 jokers. Again, this is what is very unique to American Mahjong. Now let's talk about the National Mahjong League for a moment and the rules by which we play. So, this is that famous card that people talk about that comes out every year. The day my eyeballs see the new card, I mean, I call that my national holiday every year when the new card comes out. And I think it's pretty fascinating, really, that these women back in the 1930s recognized that if we played the same game, the same hands year after year, we'd get kind of bored. And so the thought process behind changing the hands every year, I think is really pretty brilliant, to be honest. By the end of a year playing with a card, I am so tired of these hands that sometimes with my friends for fun, we'll pull out past year's cards. Like, a couple months ago, we pulled out 2018 just for the fun of it and to, keep our brains working. So if you do get into the game and you buy your cards, don't throw them away at the end of the year. It's really fun to pull them back out later and play other years. I promise you that's really fun. So in American Mahjong, I'll just open this card to show you because it's complex. You're learning, like, this is learning a whole new language, which is very interesting. And like I said, every year this card changes. Now you'll see at the top here it says 2026 because that is this year, and we are currently playing with our 2026 card. Every line on the card is a hand. Every hand consists of 14 tiles. So when we are playing Mahjong, you are going to be dealt 13 random tiles. And by the way, American Mahjong is also the only version that has three parts to the game. Every other version, you just deal the tiles and you start playing the game. But our crazy ladies back in the 1920s and 30s, I really think that they were drinking way too much absinthe because they decided to throw in this crazy part in the middle of our game called the Charleston. I like to call it the dance. So when I teach my students, I say we have the deal, the dance, and the play. Three parts to our game. Again, we're the only version of the game that has these three parts. So when we're playing, four players sitting around a table, you are dealt 13 random tiles. Now, during this crazy play part, the dance in the middle of the game, it's a series of passing tiles. What you're doing is you're trying to get rid of tiles you were dealt that you don't like, and we're hoping our opponents are passing to us tiles we really do like. And it's really just a dance. And there's two Charlestons we do. You're passing tiles first to the right, then over, then to the left, then the other way again, left, over, right. And it's bonkers, but it's kind of fun. And actually, I will tell you that doing the Charleston or the dance is the most important strategic part of the game. I tell my students that this game is 50% skill, but 80% luck. That's what I call Maj math. Because if you don't pick lucky tiles, there's nothing you could do. You're then just playing defensively. So we have this part in the middle called the Charleston or the dance. Then you get to the play part of the game where when you're picking a tile, a fresh tile, and hopefully you're picking lucky and you can make it, and then you're discarding tiles. And then the object of the game is to be the first player to complete one of these hands. You declare Mah Jongg and you're the winner of the game. And that's it. Sounds kind of simple, but it's not. First, you have to learn how to decode, how to read this card. And again, that's part of the benefits to the brain. The color, first thing you notice when you look at a National Mahjong League card is colors. Now, the colors are just telling us how many suits are required to build the hand. The colors do not represent specific suits. And that really confuses a lot of beginners. But I always tell my students, give yourself the time, the patience, and really the grace to learn this, because once you do, it becomes second nature and it will not confuse you again, I promise. But so, for example, looking at this first hand under 2026, here you have to have three twos, number two tiles in one suit. Here we have to use that soap that they made into a zero, that white dragon that we use as a zero. You have to have three of those. Then you have to have four number two tiles and four number six tiles in a different suit than what you used for this first grouping. So learning how to read the card and how to decode the hands is part of not only the benefits to our brain, but it's kind of part of the fun. I swear, when we see the new hands every year, we get so excited because, I mean, again, it's my national holiday. So I digress. Back to the league and having their beautiful charitable arm to it. So this past year, by the way, the National Mahjong League actually donated a $450,000 food truck for inner city kids in New York City who are experiencing food insecurity. They do beautiful charitable work. And why am I telling you this? Not just because, to tell you about the National Mahjong League, but because there's a lot of fake Mahjong cards that get printed every year. There are so many what we call dupes or forgeries, counterfeit. So if you do get into playing the game of Mahjong, the National Mahjong League's fiscal year runs April 1st to April 1st every year. So the last week of March is about when they start mailing out the new cards, and their goal is to have players start playing, switch over to the new year, like the first week of April every year. I mean, that's kind of the goal, right? That around the first, second week of April, we're all playing with the new card. Now, if you buy your card from like Amazon or Walmart or someplace online that is not a reputable, dealer, one, it will not have the certification on it that it's the National Mahjong League. And two, Amazon this year had so many forged cards that had the wrong hands on them. So please only order your cards either directly through the nationalmahjongleague.org, and I think their link is going to be in the notes here, or through a reputable charity like churches, synagogues, the Alzheimer's Association, the National Cancer Association, various organizations. This year I supported a group called Charleston, which is a national organization that supports women and families who are impacted by breast and ovarian cancer. And they're what they call collectors. So if you purchase and pre-order your cards, which is what I did through Share this year, they get the cards from the league, but then they're guaranteed the charitable donation so that the portion of your proceeds from the cards you purchase are going to an organization that you want to support. So check around your local area, by the way. First, where to learn how to play Mahjong if you're interested in learning. So many local places will teach, libraries, whatever. Also, I would like to mention on my website, marvelousmrsmahj.com, I have two videos. I have Mahj 101, part one and part two, which actually teach you how to play the game. And you can purchase both videos, part one and part two, and then keep them forever and refer back to them, which is another great way to learn. Now, another topic, back to the card. You will notice on this card, you're like, oh my God, what is all of that? There are 72 hands printed on this year's card. On these 72 hands, there's over 1,200 variations of those hands you can build in order to win at Mahj. So again, your job as a Mahjong player, Not only are we Mahjong players, I say we're clairvoyants, you're psychics. You have to learn to listen to the tiles. When you are dealt your 13 random tiles, your job is then to figure out where your tiles might fit in for you best to build and complete one of these hands. All four players at the table are not playing the same hand at the same time. You can't play a hand if you don't have the tiles to go for it. So again, your job, you don't know what your opponents are playing. Your opponent might have been dealt a lot more even numbered tiles. So they'll be playing right here in the 2, 4, 6, 8 section. You might have been dealt a lot of odd number tiles, so you might be playing here in my 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 section. So many of my new students, they look at this card and they go, "Oh my God, do I have to memorize every hand on that card?" It's like, holy crap, how am I going to do that? Well, no, you do not. And that's not your job. My job is to memorize every hand on the card. But when we're playing, you're going to have the card open and in front of you at the table so that you're constantly looking at your tiles and then looking at the card, trying to figure out what it is you're going to play. Now, during the game, your opponents may have to show you a grouping. They may have to expose part of their hand, and that will give you valuable information. So there's also a lot of defensive strategy to this game, which is fantastic too. Again, part of the benefits to the brain, not just a simple game that you're playing because there's complexity to it. The actual rule book from the National Mahjong League, called Mahjong Made Easy, is over 30 pages long. Now, I also want to say that on the back of the card, the league has put some of the most basic rule to the game. So if you're interested, you could read through the back of the card, but they could not possibly have put 30 something pages of rules onto the back of the card. And the rule book is not just rules, it's the proper etiquette. And that's another thing. This game really does have a lot of etiquette to it. You want to be a kind, gentle player, etiquette at the table and, not yelling and not commenting on other people's hands. So it's a lovely way to, play a game with friends with the proper etiquette. I personally like to follow the actual rules of the game. Um, because that way we all know what we're doing. Now, a lot of other companies, a couple things I want to say. New companies now, this game has become it has blown up. And I think that's part of why there's so many people here. The interest in American Mahjong has just exploded since COVID. Why? Well, because I think there's a lot of these young entrepreneurs and social media. I mean, back when I started teaching in 2018, I think there were maybe 20 companies making Mahjong tiles. There's now over 100. This game went from being about a $200 million business back, in the late 2018, to 2020, whatever. It is a $3 billion industry this year. It's going to hit over $3 billion. So many companies, so much Maj swag. Someone just sent me a photo of Mahjong underwear. And I have a new grandbaby. Someone just sent me the baby onesie with Mahjong print on it. I'm like, oh my God, there is no shortage of Maj swag out there for you to spend your money on. So, what couple things. One, when you're buying a Mahjong set, if you're interested, please make sure you can actually read the tiles. Some of these new, more gorgeous, modern sets have no connection to the history. They're just modern artistic interpretations. I recently taught a group of people who were, and the woman's husband bought her this unbelievable, gorgeous $500 tiles only set of Mahjong. The woman insisted that I teach her and her friends using her beautiful set of tiles. These poor ladies, you could not read the tiles. They were making mistakes all night. It was so sad. So, classic tiles with classic characters are your best bet to start with, and you do not have to spend a fortune on tiles. So start with a nice basic set. You can find them anywhere. Amazon that you could buy on Amazon. A lot of Mahjong websites, and I have lists on my website of other companies that sell Mahjong sets. So that's one thing I want to say to you. But a lot of these new companies are also coming up with their own rules and their own variations on the game. I have no problem with that. To me, those are like house or party rules. But I want you all, if you're going to learn how to play the game, learn the proper way first, please. Learn the actual rules, the National Mahjong League etiquette and rituals. And then I feel you can go around and play with anybody you want. Now, is asking, how long does it take to play a game? As a beginner, it'll probably take you 45 minutes maybe to learn to play an actual first game. As you start to get to be a better player, it takes you, 20, 25, sometimes 30 minutes. Depends how much wine we're drinking, how much we're complaining about our husbands and our kids while we're at the table playing with our friends. So if you're playing in a tournament, and I do love to play in tournaments, then you have to play 4 games of Mahjong, which is one round, in 55 minutes, or some tournaments are 50 minutes. So it just depends, but those are a fast game. Then you're playing games in 13 minutes, 12, 13 minutes. You're not chit-chatting. But again, what I love about the game is that social aspect, sitting at a table with my friends, again, chatting, having that connection with friends, talking about we support each other. Um, and by the way, it was 50 minutes in the tournament, 50 minutes to play 4 games of Mahj. And that's considered one round. When you're playing a social game, there's no rules as to how many games you play. During the game of Mahj, when you're dealt your 13 tiles, you're going to be picking tiles and discarding, building. The first player to complete one of these hands declares Mahjong, and that's it. The game is over. I know it sounds simple, but again, it's a little bit more difficult. Now, what strategies do I use to master a new Mahj card? That's a really great question. Well, I think I mentioned the first day when my eyeballs see the new card, that is my national holiday. My family knows that day when my new card arrives, I am not walking my dogs. I'm not making breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Mommy is sitting at my Mahj table, and I literally lay out every hand on the card. I also might lay out some variations so that I visually can see and know and understand the new hands as quickly as possible. It is also very important that you read the parentheses at the end of every hand because that gives you either specificity or flexibility in what you could do in order to build that hand. Again, this is strictly unique to our what we call American Mahjong according to the National Mahjong League rules. Now, um, one of the last things I want to mention. Oh, by the way, couple things. Oh, thank you, my cute dog. Yes, that's my basmati rice. So why are there so many spellings of the word mahjong? A lot of people ask me that. Well, in China, the original spelling of the name, M-A-H, first word, Jong-G, second word, House of Sparrow. Mahjong is the game of sparrows. The Chinese believed that if a sparrow came and sat in your bamboo, it was bringing you prosperity and good luck. or if you were wealthy enough to own a house bird, you had prosperity and good luck. And that is why Mahjong is the game of prosperity and good luck. Now, when Mr. Babcock started importing Mahjong sets over to the United States, and then there were a couple manufacturers here making it, in order for them to stand out from each other, they took on very different spellings of the game. So I always say, I don't care how you spell it, just call me to the table. Mahjong, one word, Mahjong, one G, two G's, what, no, wait, whatever. I don't care. It's all Mahjong and it's all fun. I have learned how to play. American Mahjong is my favorite what I play. I have learned um, Taiwanese, Hong Kong, and Japanese Rishi Mahjong. I couldn't teach you how to play those. They're each unique in their own way, but it is also really fun to learn other variations of the game. Now, one last thing just to tell you about myself that I'm very proud of. Since this game has exploded in popularity, my husband is actually a television movie producer, and I have been telling him for years, you have to make a movie about Mahjong. You have to make a movie about Mahjong. You have to make a movie about Mahjong. And finally, actually, my husband surprised me about a year ago. He came home one day from the office and he said, Honey, I have a surprise for you. And I said, What's that? He said, We are making a movie about Mahjong and it's inspired by you. And I was like, What? So when I started teaching, my kids were, gone off to college. I didn't have kids at home anymore. And I was like, What am I going to do in my life? And a friend of mine said to me, Ronnie, do what you love. You love playing Mahjong. Will you teach some of my friends how to play? This was back in 2018. And I said, sure. So I had a group of friends. And yes, you're right. There are other movies about Mahjong, tons of movies, but this was one about American Mahjong, is what I'm referring to. But anyway, I started teaching this player's friends. And it became my passion, teaching. I absolutely love teaching this game. I love it. I teach through UCLA, I teach through Skirball. When I first started teaching, I'd be lucky enough if I had like 4 students a month. I now teach every single day. And when we're done with this, I'm going to be on my way to go teach another group in Los Feliz here. So it is my passion. And my husband was I could cry, but he was so proud of me how I built this really second chapter in my life. And he didn't write, he hired a writer to create a script about a woman who has to get her second act in life. And through her passion of Mahjong, um, she's able to do after divorce her second life. And it's a Hallmark movie called All's Fair in Love and Mahjong. And I co-produced it with my husband, and I am so proud of it. And my husband calls it his love letter to me, which again, I could cry. It's very sweet and it's a very special time in our life. So I encourage you all to watch the movie All's Fair in Love and Mahjong. And it was just so fun. And it's just sharing my passion for this game, but also how this game really gave me a second life. The connection that I have to my friends and the support it's given me. And that's what we really wanted to show in the movie. So I am super, super proud of that. Now, going back, someone asked, how do you develop a hand and strategy? Well, I tell my students, again, you're not going to memorize every hand on the card, but this card has different uh, groupings, what I call neighborhoods. What neighborhoods are you going to play in? And a lot of neighborhoods have overlapping tiles. So, as a strategy, what you're doing is you're looking at a hand. For example, when I'm dealt tiles, I'm looking for what neighborhood could I possibly be playing in? Meaning, do I have a lot of even number tiles? Do I have a lot of odd number tiles? Do I have a lot of the wind tiles? What tiles do I have? Where could you pivot to, someone's talking about pivoting. Oh, gosh, my opponent just showed me that they have all the tiles that I thought I needed. Where am I going to go to? So learning how to do that is part of the what you would learn when you take an actual lesson. By the way, there's no way I could teach you how to play Mahjong in this Zoom. My intro to Mahj classes are about 3 to 3.5 hours, and then with a second follow-up lesson. So anyone who says that they could teach you how to play in an hour or two, I don't think they're teaching you the proper way and all how to play the game. So I just want to say that. That's why I'm not here teaching you actually how to play. I'm giving you an overview. I'm trying to explain to you why now, it's such a, passionate big explosion of the game. And again, the monetization of the game. Oh, someone asked, this is a standard size card, by the way. That's what I'm showing. Okay, Vince, do you want to go to should we ask other questions?
Yes, thank you so much, Ronnie. Great information. And we're going to have Jacqueline, who's been monitoring the questions in the chat. She can ask any other questions that have come up. Jacqueline?
Okay, Ronnie, you actually did a good job of seamlessly answering the questions as you were presenting. So that was really good. But I do have a couple, maybe that we can ask. Is there a company that creates Mahjong sets that contributes to the National Mahjong Association?
Sadly, no. I mean, but there are companies
Mm,
like Mah Jongg, Maven, who do collect. They will be collectors for the card, like Mah Jongg Maven did for the Alzheimer's Association this year. If you purchase the National Mahjong League cards through them, but no, the companies that sell the tiles and all the swag, those are just for-profit companies.
okay. You touched on this briefly. Can you talk about strategy and picking hands when you see more than one hand developing?
Oh, of course. Oh, thank you. So at the beginning of the game, I teach my students that you want to stay as open and as flexible as you can. You have to wait. Patience is a virtue in Mahjong because again, you are going to be picking and discarding. There's 152 tiles once the play part of the game starts. So you're picking, oh, I have a lot of odd number tiles, for example. So I'm going to start here in my 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 category. But then all of a sudden I start picking a lot of maybe number 4 tiles. But I have the threes and the fives. You might want to strategically look at this consecutive run neighborhood, for example. Or, oh, I have a lot of all the same number tiles. I have the number 7 tiles in all 3 suits. So you might want to look at a hand here like any like numbers. So you're constantly reassessing as you're playing based on the tiles you are picking. We're reassessing, might this work? Might this fit into what hand I might, or should I go to a different category? But so again, learning the neighborhoods, knowing the categories on the card is the most important part, really, to know that.
Yeah. This question, I think someone else answered it, but I'm going to direct it to you so we can get an official answer. Can you buy tile sets to bring the 144 tile set to 152?
That's a really good question. And I'm going to say you'd have to go back to whoever made that, where you bought that tile set, because you would need tiles that would match. And I don't know if that's possible or not. I would guess a lot of those companies would not make matching tiles, but you'd have to go back to that company because all your tiles have to be the same, or else your opponents would know, oh, you have those 8 jokers because they're different tiles than what we're playing with.
Yeah.
So,
Good
but
to
if
know.
you,
Yeah.
by the way, but a good point is if you do buy an American Mahjong set of tiles, most of them give you the ability to play all other versions of the game. So you could take that set that, if an American version has, for example, 160 tiles because they gave you some extra tiles in case you lose one, but you can play Asian versions of the game then with an American Mahjong set.
Okay. Do each of the players have the card in front of them while playing the game? Also, when someone gets Mahjong, do you count points?
Oh, great question. So the answer is yes. And one of the things that I want to say that also makes me very happy just talking about tournaments. When I tried playing my first tournament, I was so nervous. I was shaking. I was scared to death. And I walked into this tournament, and this woman at the table said, I don't need my Mahjong card. And she didn't pull her Mahjong card out. And it terrified me. I was like, holy crap, this woman doesn't need the card. I was scared to death. I played the worst game I've ever played. It was terrible. And I am so glad that the tournament directors even made it a rule. Every player has to have their card out and in front of them. It was so intimidating to me to not have that woman didn't have her card. So the answer is yes, I would always have my card. All players have their card open and in front of them while you're playing.
Yeah. Second to last question. How many neighborhoods does that card contain?
Well, this year's card we have 9, some years we have 10. Because some years they like to be very creative and they put another category up, which are like what we call math or equation hands. They're just being cute and clever. Sometimes the hands might, be like 4 2s plus 4 4s equals 4 6s. So, don't panic if they have math hands. There's no math test at the end of the game. They're just being cute and clever.
Yeah. Do you have a recommendation for an app to play as a beginner for a beginner?
Well, I do actually, and I'll just say there are so many apps out there and so many new ones. Now, this is an advantage. When I first really learned how to play, and I'm not going to date myself, but when my kids were in elementary school, they did not have the game online. They did not have online apps. They just had the Mahjong tile matching game. It honestly, and this is another thing I want to say when I go back to give yourself the time, the patience, and the grace to learn the game. American Mahjong is a complex game with just so many rules and rituals. So, why am I saying this to you? It took me a good 6 months of playing regularly with friends. So I finally went, oh, I'm a Mahjong player. With the online games now, you can learn so much faster and easier. I personally like the online game called Real Mahjong. Now, full disclosure, the gentleman who created it, his name is Ronnie. He's a lovely gentleman from China. It is not me. I am not smart enough to do computer coding. I have no idea how to make an app, but and I have nothing to do with the game, but he's lovely. It's a paid app. I think it's $6.99 a month, but it's so easy to navigate for beginners. I love it. But there are new free ones. There's one, I believe it's called Mahj for Fun. That's a free app. And so you can check around. There's other online apps, but the one in particular that I think is the best for beginners is called Real Mahjong. And I get nothing for you all signing up for it. Again, that Ronnie's a different Ronnie.
But I think it's also important to call out the what you said a little bit earlier, which is there are all these Mahjong tile matching games, which are not the game of Mahjong. So those are just fun games where you match up like tiles with each other, and those are usually free. But that is not American Mahjong. So you really have to look for the app that says this is the Mahjong game, not Mahjong tile matching.
Correct. Thank you, Vince. Yeah. But a lot of the online apps too will also have other versions of the game that you can play on there, but they don't teach you how to play. That's just playing the game. So learn how to play first.
Okay, so final question. I'm going to combine two. How many people or can you have at the table, and can you play with just two people?
So Mahjong is traditionally a four-player game. It is a four-person game. Yes, you can play three-player game. you kind of fake having the fourth player there. There is a two-player version that's called Siamese Mahjong that has different rules and different strategies. That was actually created by one of the OG Mahj mentors, Gladys Grad. She created the rules to playing two-player Siamese Mahjong, and it is super fun. And you can find those rules online. But again, I really encourage you to learn the actual proper four-person game first, because then playing the two-player game will make so much more sense to you.
Okay, thank you. That's our last question. If you could just tell people, put it in the chat where to find your movie. We're getting a lot of questions on that.
Thank you.
And thank you for your time today. Vince,
Thank you.
back to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Ronnie. And please join us next month for Tea and Coffee Tuesdays in September, on September 8th, for a special presentation, AI for Older Adults. Join Deirdre Lee, Senior Director of Virtual Programs at Senior Planet from AARP, to learn the ins and outs of AI, that's artificial intelligence, for older adults. In this session, she'll give a brief overview of the technology, how older adults are using it today, best practices to keep you safe, and how to get started. She will also share some of the free resources the Senior Planet has for older adults who want to learn more about AI. Now, if you would like to learn to view previous programs or learn more about the Tea and Coffee Tuesday monthly series, check out the link in the chat. You'll also find the video for this presentation today, but we should be sending you a follow-up email if you registered for the event, so you'll have the link to rewatch this presentation. Again, thank you so much to Ronnie for today's excellent presentation. Thank you to our Tea and Coffee Tuesday volunteers, Sarita, Haresh, Jacqueline, as well as the AARP staff. And of course, thank you all for joining us. We hope you've enjoyed today's presentation. I am your AARP volunteer host, Vince King, and this concludes today's program. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.